everyone. We're just going to get started in a couple minutes with our live virtual employer event. If anyone's just tuning in, this employer conference is focused on answering questions on skills-based recovery strategies and missing links within the Newfoundland workforce. So Skills Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador has partnered with some really amazing local businesses such as Verafin, RBC, and iEAS to bring you today's events. We're so excited to have you join us today and to jump into our discussion. So for those who are not familiar with Skills Canada, we are a nonprofit organization that promotes education in skilled careers to youth across our province. My name is Keisha Lockyer, and I'm a project coordinator focusing on employer engagement. My main goal is to determine what skills are lacking in all sectors in our province in order to develop programming for youth focused on these specific needs. So this programming will help prepare youth for their varying career pathways when they enter the workforce. So it's some really interesting stuff, and I think I'm going to learn a lot today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our lovely panelists. So from Verafin, we have Jennifer Vinnedge and Heidi Murphy. Jennifer is a software development career program specialist who works with high school students and new hires. Heidi is a recruitment specialist. Her area of expertise is in talent acquisition, as she works to hire the best people and the brightest minds for Verafin. From iEAS, we have John Dalley, General Manager of Industrial Engineering and Automation Solution Limited, which is his very own company that stands for iEAS. John is also a board of director with Skills Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador, and a member of our National Technical Committee. And finally, from RBC, we have Nicholle Vicars, who is the branch manager for RBC on Topsail Road. Nicholle is responsible for the overall management of the Topsail Road team and leads 7 professionals who provide advice and service to various clients. RBC is one of Skills Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador's corporate sponsors. So to RBC, we want to thank you for your continued support and our alumni through the RBC Future Launch Program. It's honestly such a pleasure to have you all here, and I just wanted to thank you guys for taking this time to be with us today. So I guess we'll just jump into the questions. So question number 1 is going to be, what are the biggest changes your organization has had to undergo since COVID-19? What key skills will you be looking for in employees coming into this new workforce? So we'll start with John, and then we'll just go down through the list. Okay,
I guess that's a challenging place to start because it's a totally different work environment right now. On a business level, our revenue and workloads are generally down, and they were really down for the first couple of months, but they're picking up again somewhat. I think mostly it was down because most of our clients were adjusting their procedures and work policies to deal with safety concerns, of course, surrounding COVID-19. But at the same time, we're still, overall, our revenue is down and our workload is down. I think that's a result of just a general economic slowdown. So we got to adjust to that. And there's a lot of new safety precautions that took us a while to get adjusted to. Most work sites have increased COVID-19 training and awareness procedures. For example, masks have to be worn. Physical distancing has to be adhered to as much as possible, which makes it a little more challenging to complete our work in our projects. Another issue that we've hit, of course, is obtaining materials. With what we do with some very specialized equipment, so our manufacturers have scaled back staff and they're having trouble getting raw materials. So it delays our timelines on receiving materials, which makes it very challenging. And again, even shipping and courier companies are staffing down, have staffed down. They're having to pick up now, and this has added some additional delays to our projects. But internally as a company, we've adjusted very well. We're practicing our physical distancing. Most of our meetings internally take place in our warehouse now instead of the boardroom. It gives us more room to physical distance. And I would think that 100% of our outside and customer meetings are taking place via Zoom or Microsoft Teams, which helps. It's challenging to get used to that. Because it's always nice to be there and be able to show people stuff, but we're getting accustomed to it. And a lot of our systems, of course, we install control systems that got to be commissioned and tested on site. So we're adapting to that. We're installing remote system commissioning equipment so we can remotely commission. We haven't done one yet. We do have one installed. We're waiting to commission next week remotely, which is going to be very challenging. But I think with the right planning and the right people, we're hoping to be 100% successful on that commissioning process remotely. And if that works, we'll keep doing it. It saves time, it saves money for our clients. We don't have to travel, we don't have to pay hotel bills and that kind of stuff. So we're hoping that'll work for us. But at the end of the day, we got no choice. We have to adapt to this new reality of doing business. It's different, but I think one good thing about being a business in Newfoundland is that everybody in this province are on the same page when it comes to adapting to COVID-19. I think everybody knows that we have 0 cases and we've been doing pretty good. So hopefully that will continue and we'll be able to just adapt as we need. And that about covers it for what we've done for COVID. I mean, we are staying diligent. We're distancing. We're cleaning the office more. We're all washing our hands and doing what we got to do. Just doing what's expected of us. What anybody would do, really.
Perfect. Thank you, John. Yeah, it's been a real challenge for a lot of businesses in the province. I mean, I'm constantly seeing businesses closing down, due to the decreased revenue, as you mentioned. And the training is hard too, because, it takes time to get used to these things. I mean, wearing a mask everywhere. And, I learned a little trick. Somebody told me the other day to twist your mask in order for your glasses not to fog up. That's something I just learned. I've been going around not being able to see for the last 2 months, but anyway, thanks for that. So I guess we'll move on to Nicholle. Same question. I will just repeat it. So the question is, what's the biggest skill gap between brand new hires? Oh, sorry, that's the second question. What are the biggest challenges your organization has had to face since COVID-19, and what key skills will you be looking for in employees coming into this new workforce?
Thank you, Keisha, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm super excited to be here today. I will apologize in advance that my camera is not working, but as long as you hear me okay, then I think we should be good. So similar to, a lot of other organizations, RBC has been a significant amount of change. Some of the biggest changes we've had to undergo, well, first and foremost, in order to keep our employees safe and continue to serve our clients during this critical time, we have had to work quickly to move more than 45,000 employees in Canada to alternate work arrangements. As our borders around the world were closing, many of our clients needed help to get home, complete their travel arrangements. As a result of that, this drove our call volumes so high that we had to redeploy employees from other parts of our organization to help manage some of the volumes. We had to temporarily close nearly 40% of our branches and limit the hours of operations at others to limit the spread of COVID-19. Here in St. John's, we had 3 branches that did remain open. And as you can imagine, this created tremendous long lineups outside our branches. We had staff in the parking lot talking to clients, trying to educate and enable them to use alternate channels to conduct their banking, but at the end of the day, certainly respecting our clients' preference and voice. We also worked with our, partners in government to maintain the underlying strength and stability of Canada's economy. Different programs that were launched, to be able to help our clients and Canadians overall. We also implemented some significant changes to our branches that did remain open to comply, of course, with public health requirements. Things like this included enhanced cleaning and sanitation, installing plexiglass, creating new signing stations, screening our clients before they came in, asking the COVID health-related questions. And of course, limiting the access. We could only allow so many clients to come in at any one given time. What was pretty neat we were still able to provide advice to clients just as they were if they were walking into our branches, as our technology has certainly allowed us to do that. And one last thing I will say is that, being a long time employee of RBC, I was absolutely amazed at how quick, some of our policies and procedures had changed to make things certainly easier for our clients and our employees. So those are some of the biggest changes from RBC's perspective. The next part of your question was around some key skills that, we'd be looking for employees coming into this new workforce. Certainly in personal skills, a drive to be successful in your role. Teamwork, of course, is key, being able to work as a team. Somebody who's also looking for opportunities to grow and develop professionally. Change agents, we know how fast it is changing, and people are able to keep up with the pace of change and adapt quickly. Good communication skills as well, I would say, is certainly another key skill that we'd be looking for. A willingness to learn, a positive attitude, and of course, flexible and motivation as well would be some of the other key skills. So that would be it from my end.
Perfect. Thanks, Nicholle. Yeah, both you and John mentioned the issues with shipping and getting supplies. And a lot of people don't realize that, these other services in place directly affect every business. And it's not something that a lot of people think about firsthand. So it's definitely a challenge and can have, a lot of negative effects on business, especially nowadays. As for the key skills that you mentioned, awesome. A lot of the research that I've done so far has indicated that teamwork and communication are things that are really lacking in our province. And they're two extremely important things. Anywhere you work, you're going to need those skills. So thanks for that, Nicholle. We'll move on to Heidi. Same question. Like I said, I will repeat it. So the question is, what are the biggest changes your organization has had to undergo since COVID-19? What key skills will you be looking for in employees coming into this new workforce?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. So for those people that aren't aware, Verafin is a software company. So we provide anti-money laundering and fraud detection software for banks and credit unions. So we're a little bit different than the other folks here. We don't have a physical product, and most of our customers are actually outside of Newfoundland. So for our office space, it's just mostly employees and, of course, office things needing to be dropped off, but we don't have a whole lot of traffic coming into the office in any case. So in terms of changes we've made since COVID-19, we all had the ability to work from home prior to this. I would say most of us did that on occasion versus, a day-to-day thing. But we did have, the technology from, we all have laptops, we could all remote connect into the system from home. So all of that was in place prior to COVID-19, which really set us up for a fairly smooth transition to working remotely as an organization. So we actually did a test when things were sort of starting to, we could see, things were starting to change. People were sort of talking a lot more about COVID. So we said, okay, if we can get 90% of the company to go work from home as a test and sort of test the system, test the technology, because we've never had that many people at home at once. So we did that on a Monday. And actually after that point, pretty much very few people went back because things had changed so incredibly over that weekend. That was the March 15th weekend when things really started to take a turn. So we've been home ever since. People are starting to shift back into the office if they so choose. We've really set it up for physical distancing. We're monitoring how many people are in the building, and we're seeing about 100 or so per day out of our 600 employees. So, we've got everything in place in there for employees to work safely if they so choose to go into the building. It's completely up to them if they want to go in or not. Some folks prefer to work in the office. for a variety of reasons. And if they want to do that, they certainly can. I myself have actually not been in the office since April. I really have been surprised at how much I enjoy working from home. So, I mean, for us, it was a fairly seamless transition because we had sort of all done it before. But what I would say, really, we had to concentrate on as an organization is communication was huge. So we have all the technology at our fingertips to be able to communicate, but just making sure that we were doing that and doing that regularly. So setting up those regular cadence of meetings with our teams, with our teammates, making sure that everyone was on the same page. And then the other thing I would say, just like you just mentioned, how important teamwork is. So teamwork is actually one of Verafin's core values. And one of the things that makes Verafin so successful, I think, is our ability to work as a team. So, we were still trying to find ways to collaborate on things, make sure we were still working together, because we really do truly believe in the power of a team working together makes our business stronger. So those are the two main things I would say that, they existed before, but we really had to intentionally concentrate on that as we shifted over. And one of the things that also makes Verafin so special is just ensuring we're finding, people hear about Verafin, they hear about events and fun and all sorts of stuff that we like to do, and finding ways to continue to do that for our employees in COVID in unique ways has certainly, been top of mind as well. So we've been doing virtual team lunches, and we had a Zoom room where everyone could pop on that was called the kitchen. So people could just pop in and out and still have those little off the cuff chats that were so important when we were all in the office. So overall, it's been a good transition. Like I said, we are starting to see some folks head back in, of course, as safely as possible. But yeah, overall, it was pretty good for us. In terms of skills, the other part of your question, again, communication, so important for any person looking for jobs during this time. Communication is important anyways, but certainly, when we've got all these challenges in terms of distance and whatever, communication becomes even more important. And again, ability to work on a team, I can't stress enough how important that has been to us as an organization. So over half of our workforce at Verafin are software developers. And they even pair program, like that's how closely they work together, which is like 2 or 3 developers working on the same code. So, those are the two major things I would certainly, in terms of interpersonal skills, but also as a recruiter, I feel like I should mention that I do feel like virtual interviewing is something that's going to exist for a very long time, just because bringing people physically into a building right now would be a fairly high risk if they're not working there. We don't want to put candidates at risk, and we don't want to put our employees at risk. So I think getting used to virtual interviewing, becoming familiar with these technologies like Zoom, WebEx, whatever they might be, and just ensuring you're prepared to interview for positions virtually. So, same things you do for a regular interview, but making sure you're really prepared, making sure that all the technology is working, that you've tested it ahead of time, being mindful of what's behind you on the screen, all that sort of stuff, right? So I think, the virtual interview is going to be with us certainly as long as COVID is sort of a problem. And for some people, that's fairly easy. We've been doing virtual interviews for years, but lots of people, it was their first time ever sitting in on a virtual interview. So just being mindful of that, and putting that, I guess, in the back of your head if you are applying for jobs would be important right now. My coworker Jennifer is here with me as well. Jennifer, I don't know if you have anything you want to add there, if I missed anything.
No, I think you pretty much covered everything. I have a unique perspective on this because I actually started totally remote. My hire date was the day that everything closed down. So I was onboarded and went through training and started my job, and everything completely remote. So I think that Heidi really hit on a lot of the things for Verafin in terms of how quickly we adapted here. And I've also been working in the office. So there are a lot of safety protocols that you have to consider coming in. And I mean, we have every second workstation removed so that people are spread out. And we have these meeting rooms that a lot of folks have been using because of the fact that we've had so few people in. In terms of the key skills, the only other one that I would highlight, and I think Nicholle mentioned this, is adaptability. Being able to take the new kind of normal and go with it and really be able to shine with all the changes kind of going on. And Heidi talked about that a little bit, like being able to adjust to doing on-camera interviews instead of in-person interviews and stuff like that. So I think adaptability is definitely a key skill that everybody should be striving towards. And I think that's an important one that employers are going to be looking for.
Definitely.
Perfect. Thanks, Heidi and Jennifer. Yeah, safety is extremely important for both employees and customers. I think many companies, and including yourselves, have done an amazing job at implementing online platforms to keep it safe. It is harder to communicate online. Heidi, I know you mentioned you guys had been doing this before, but it is definitely harder. It's amazing how Verafin has been able to maintain the same amount of success with 90% of their staff working from home. For us, two of us were actually hired during, I guess, the peak of COVID. So we were hired and we didn't actually meet in the office for, I want to say, a month. But once we've started coming back in, and we find that we brainstorm better, we're all in the same space. So it's definitely harder, but we've put in the work to implement our online platforms, and it's been really great. We've adapted, and I think all you guys have adapted really well. So kudos to everyone. It's awesome. So we'll move on to our second question, which is what's the biggest skill gap between brand new hires, so for example, those who are just out of school, and employees who have been in the workforce before and therefore have more experience? And we'll just go with the same structure again. So we'll start with John.
Okay, there's a few skill gaps, and I think I missed the second question in the first part there, but it should be covered under this this question, really. I've hired a lot of new graduates over the years, and of course I support the College of the North Atlantic graduates as much as I can, both on work terms and when they graduate. And these points that I'm going to put forward here is not meant to demean new graduates or anything, but it's to help you excel and prepare in areas where you need to be strong in a career. We were all new graduates at some point, so I had many of these gaps that I'm going to go through when I started my career. And I suspect I still have some gaps. It's a continuous learning process throughout your career. I learn, and every day I learn something new. It's fun. I think one of the biggest ones, I guess, is problem-solving skills. You've got to be willing and able to solve complex problems when you're designing, troubleshooting, and refining products. And creativity. You got to be creative with your designs, and it just helps the whole process when you're able to do that and focus on the task at hand. One of the biggest things that I find with new graduates, and I let my staff make decisions. If you can't make a decision, it's going to be very challenging in your career. Sometimes if you're waiting and you wait and you're trying to get help and you're afraid to make a decision, it's costing money for your clients and it's costing money for your employer. So being not afraid to make a decision is very important. Attention to detail is also very, very, very important for engineering. A small mistake can have very serious consequences, both safety-wise and financial-wise. So detail in your work and focus on your work is very important. Commercial awareness is another important point. I would think, be prepared to keep pace with all the commercial trends and new innovations, and continue with your professional development so you are able to develop the best current solution for your customers. That's very important, and most customers like to have the latest and greatest technology. So when you're aware of those new technologies, it'll help you in your career for sure. And as an electrical engineer, which is what I am, there's a variety of skills that you need to excel in your role. And these aren't typically listed on an electrical engineering job description, but managers and employers and managers like to see these attributes in a new graduate. And some of these might be repeated from before, but creativity, again, is very important when you're designing and troubleshooting. Leadership skills, you got to be able to take charge of a project and hopefully throughout your career, a team of employees to see the project to a completion. Planning and organizational skills are very important to achieve budgets and meet time constraints. If it costs to a big project and it's late, it ends up costing sometimes $100,000. Written and oral communication skills are very important. A lot of times you're dealing with people who don't really understand the specialized nature of what you're designing. So you got to be able to both verbally and verbally and in written documentation describe what you're doing in a, for lack of a better term, layman's terms to a lot of people. Some people you don't, they know it, but some do. And you got to be able to work in a multidisciplinary team. Most times when you're engineering a project, you're dealing with electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, process engineers, civil engineers. So you got to be able to interact and understand all those aspects of the project. And for electrical in particular, a passion for technology, mathematics, physics is very important. If you don't have that passion, you will not enjoy what you're doing. I heard a quote one time that electrical engineering is one of the top jobs for nerds because of their passion for technology and math and physics. And that about covers it. Just enjoy what you're doing. If you go into a career or you're do a career or do electrical engineering and you think you don't enjoy it, I suggest maybe looking at an alternate career path.
Perfect. Thank you, John. So you're calling yourself a nerd?
Not anymore. I used to be.
Yeah, you really touched on some really great points there. I mean, I'm a new grad myself, and there's still a ton of things that I need to learn. Something different that you mentioned that I haven't heard yet is the commercial awareness, but it's a really great point because, you do want to stay up to date with what your customers are looking for. And I haven't heard anybody mention that yet. So that's really, really great.
Shelf life on technology is 90 days, right? That's on average. If a new product comes out within 90 days, you will see something better.
That's crazy. I mean, we're so technologically advanced these days. And I like how you mentioned that you need to really love what you do. And if you don't, then change it, because I've been there. I went to do marine engineering systems design, and it was not for me. So,
yeah.
And now I love what I'm doing. So I think that's a really great point for anybody listening, especially you, like going into different paths, different career paths. Really need to figure out what you love doing, because if you go in doing something that you don't like, it's just going to be exactly the same when you get into the workforce, right? So I'm really glad that you touched on that. So we'll go to Nicholle. And like I said, I'll just repeat the question again. And it's, what's the biggest skill gap between brand new hires, for example, those who are just out of school, and employees who have been in the workforce before and therefore have more experience?
Sure. So as I reflect on this question, I'd like to actually turn the question around, if I could, to what are the assets our brand new hires bring to the workforce. And just some things to highlight would be, they certainly bring a different way of thinking and even addressing problems. Diversity of thought is really good. They're team players. And digital fluency, brand new hires grown up in a digital world, so they're used to the technology. Making or to become a banking advisor, a little bit of the stress and anxiety of, having that specific requirement. It does make one more competitive, of course, but again, it's not a requirement to have that course, and nor is it a requirement to have banking experience before joining our organization.
Perfect, Nicole. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought up a few things that were good about new hires, because there are a lot of good things about, new graduates. The technology point that you mentioned is absolutely true, and even more so for the younger generations, because they're growing up with even more technology and even newer technology. I mean, there's lots of stuff that my sister uses that I have no idea what it is. And there's only an 8-year gap between us. So things are constantly changing. And I know, John, you said that technology only has a shelf life of 90 days. So it's good to be able to stay up to date with technology and have those skills to continue learning. So we'll move on to Heidi. And as I said, I'll just repeat the question so you have it. What's the biggest skill gap between brand new hires, for example, those just out of school, and employees who have been in the workforce before and therefore have more experience?
Yeah, for sure. So we hire a lot of new grads at Verafin. We love new grads. Most of them come from the software engineering field, computer science field. So that's, like I said, over half our workforce is research and development for our product, for our software. So, I mean, as Nicholle said, there are a lot of wonderful things about new grads, no doubt about it, which is why we love hiring people straight out of school. And I was actually a new graduate from the business faculty when I came to Verafin. So a lot of, my comments around this, I sort of went through my own evolution with this when I first came to Verafin. But I would say for most new grads, just working in a professional setting, a lot of times, some of them have had work terms, some of them hadn't, just depending on their program. I would certainly encourage folks, if they're looking at school programs, if you can get a work term to get that professional experience, that would definitely help you. But yeah, just working in a professional setting is usually a big change versus school. I would say dealing with like difficult situations, dealing with, challenging situations, when you're a new hire, when you're a new graduate, everything sort of feels like it would be the end of the world when things come up. And that could be, for us, sometimes our developers are working on projects, they're working on code, and then all of a sudden we're very agile and we go like, nope, that's not working. Like, we're going to go in a completely different direction and sort of throw out the window what we were working on. And that can be like a little bit of a struggle for people when they've worked really hard on something, in a lot of cases, to sort of let go of that, right? I think the more maturity you get and the further along in your career, the more that sort of stuff just like rolls off you, for lack of a better word. But it can be hard at first. And that's right across the business, where the pace of change is very quick, and dealing with change is hard when you've just sort of come out of school and you think this is the way something is going to be, and it's not necessarily that way. So I would think dealing with those situations, and even having tough conversations with your coworkers, tough conversations with customers. We would like to be able to fulfill every need that our customers ask for, but it's just not possible at our scale. And sometimes you got to have those hard conversations. So I think being able to deal with those situations, those interpersonal situations, that comes with maturity, and it comes with time as a new graduate, for sure. Similar to Nicole's comment, so a lot of what people come in to Verafin in terms of our industry, so we provide banking software, so we're sort of in that same industry, and most people don't have that background. So I think for a lot of folks, new hires or not, or new graduates or not, learning our industry, learning our software, it can just feel like completely all encompassing. It's a lot to learn. And usually folks during our interviews, sometimes we get the question like, what's the expectation for success in the first 6 months? And we're like, you're still going to be learning at 6 months. Like, we don't expect you to really produce anything at that point. So it's just a lot. And I think this exists in taking on any new job, but the learning curve is huge, right? And you just got to give yourself patience and time, and realize that, you know, all that will come with time, and eventually you'll feel like a little bit more of an expert. I mean, things change constantly, but you'll feel more confident in what it is you're doing. So yeah, that's what I would say certainly is just that level of working in a professional environment, dealing with hard situations, dealing with tough conversations, and just learning a new industry, learning a new role. All of that is part of being a new hire, a new graduate, and certainly, you know, before you know it, in my case, 9 years later, 9 years have passed, and you feel like, you know, you still learn something new every day. So you know, that doesn't really change. Jennifer, I don't know, you're newish, so, and you deal with all the new hires these days, so you might have something to add there. You take them after I hire them.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that between the three of you, you've kind of highlighted everything. I think it's important to try to be as prepared with knowledge about the organization and the workplace that you're going to be going into. Heidi mentioned that, and Nicholle mentioned as well, like doing some courses and stuff to kind of prepare yourself for different aspects that might be involved in your job. But I think another big one is being able to balance handling your workload is a big thing for people coming out, but also being able to adjust that workload and talk about it if it's too much. I think a lot of new graduates come out and they come into positions, and sometimes depending on the area, they might be thrown into something and be a little overwhelmed, but they're like, well, maybe this is it, and I don't know if I can do anything about this. But being able to kind of stand up a little bit as well and just have that discussion. It doesn't have to be I can't do it, just to, you know, have a discussion with your team lead or a peer or anybody going through the same kind of thing and see what's going on there. So I think and that goes back a bit to Heidi's point anyway, and that comes with maturity and feeling comfortable. And especially when you're a new hire, you kind of feel like maybe that's not your place to stand up and have those discussions, the hard ones, but that's important. And besides that, I think John brought up a good point about being organized. It's very different being in a workforce sometimes than being in school, and just the office things of communication and teamwork and availability and stuff like that is really important.
Perfect. Thank you, Heidi and Jennifer. Yeah, it seems like being able to take criticism is an important factor for new grads. I like what Heidi said about sort of just letting things roll off your back. And that can be applied in any situation in life, which is really nice. And the tough conversations, that leads into communication, how you're feeling. And for new grads, it's definitely hard to, I guess, have that confidence in order to speak up and tell people that you're struggling. So those are really great answers. So I guess we'll just move on to question number 3, which is our last question. And this one is very opinion-based. It is, what advice would you offer youth wanting to enter your specific field/sector? So we'll start with John again.
Okay, I guess the best advice I can give for a new graduate, and this comes from experience, entering the workforce, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Ask as many questions as you want. You will always get the answer. And that's my policy I have here at our workplace. My door is always open. If anybody has a question and they know it, they come in and ask. And if I take 10 questions in one day or if I take 100, it doesn't make a difference to me. I'm going to make time to answer. So always ask a question and don't feel like you're asking a stupid question. I guess secondly is, and I've done this on numerous occasions throughout my career, and I learned from it and try not to, but it does happen. try not to burn any bridges with anybody. I know sometimes it's tough and careers get challenging and discussions and arguments get heated. But try your best not to burn any bridges. And if you do, try and rectify it as soon as possible. Don't let it linger. Sometimes people will be open to rectifying the issues, and sometimes people won't. And if they're not open to it, then you just have to carry on and keep your head up. And push yourself to take initiative. No one's going to push you to do your work, and nor should you have to be pushed in your career. You've got to push yourself to get it done and get it done right and keep it on schedule, et cetera, et cetera. Don't ever settle for just good enough. Good enough is good, but there's always better. So if you're not satisfied with your work, or you don't think it's right, you're thinking to yourself it's good enough to put out there, double check it, triple check it, have somebody else check, make sure. Another limit skills, and this is for an engineering, because my experience is in engineering in my career. Don't limit your skills just in after every opportunity. Just keep learning and open mind to learning about other careers as well, even if you're in a career in engineering. And I guess one thing, and I try to make this as clear as possible to our staff here, is never turn down an opportunity for a training course or a seminar or an opportunity to continue your professional development. And don't be afraid to ask your manager if you think you need a training course or would like to have one. I would suspect that 99 times out of 100, the answer is going to be yes, go do the course. And that betters not only yourself, it betters the team around you, and it betters the company, and your manager will appreciate that you're taking the initiative to keep your professional development up to snuff. That pretty much covers it for me.
Perfect. Thank you, John. I think pretty much everything that you said can be applied to any sector, not just the technology sector. And especially with online, you mentioned, trying to stay on top of your work and having less supervision and all that stuff. And that's more true than ever right now. Most of us are working from home and it's on an output basis. So you really need to take yourself and do what you need to do without somebody telling you what to do. So that's really awesome. So Nicholle, I'm going to ask you the same thing. So what advice would you offer youth wanting to enter your specific field/sector?
Absolutely. So just a couple things before I get into that question was just wanted to highlight one of Jennifer's comments. And I loved what you said, Jennifer, about, the company that you're applying to work for. I am part of our staffing committee here in Newfoundland and Labrador. And one of the questions we always like to ask is, why is it you want to come work for RBC, and what is it you know about our organization? And there's just something about that. People can articulate what they know about our company versus somebody who is applying who knows nothing about RBC. Could kind of give you a gauge whether they're looking for a job or whether they're looking for a career. It certainly does make or break our decision in hiring, obviously, but it does add a little bit more value. I will say that. I also like what John said, no such thing as a stupid question. That's how we learn, and we learn by asking lots and lots of questions. No matter how long you're with an organization, learning is every day, and you're always going to need to ask questions. John also mentioned about pushing yourself, getting out of your comfort zone. And I always like to say you have to get uncomfortable in order to get comfortable. And I really do believe in that. So just a few other things, I guess, that I would add around youth wanting to enter our specific field or sector would be, to find a field, a role, a profession that interests you. Don't do it for the money. Be willing to take calculated career risks. Try new things to build your skills and your experience. Be tech savvy. We know how fast technology is changing these days, so being tech savvy is certainly important. A drive successful and a passion to really want to excel in your role. Be open, to learning skills from others, as well as sharing your skills with others. Be a lifelong learner. As we discussed, learning is every single day. And I always like to say it wasn't a good day unless I learned something new. And it doesn't matter how long you're with an organization, you learn every day for sure. With us at RBC, our training programs here are absolutely fantastic. RBC is an amazing organization to work for. There's so many opportunities for professional growth and development within our company, and so many different lines of business that make up our organization, which, creates that many more opportunities. I guess finally, what I would say is, don't do it for a job, for the sake of having a job. Do it because you want to make it a career. So I think, that's pretty much it from me.
Perfect. Thank you, Nicholle. It seems like a lot of you guys have similar opinions, even though you're in different sectors. Continuous learning was brought up again, so that seems to be an important reoccurring skill that people should have when they're coming into this new workforce. And they say that the best things come from stepping out of your comfort zone, and I think that can be applied to work life too. In order to get comfortable, like you said, you need to get uncomfortable, and that was really awesome. So thanks for your expertise, Nicholle. We'll move on to Heidi. Same question. What advice would you offer youth wanting to enter your specific field/sector?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll talk specifically from folks interested in pursuing a career in software development, I should say, just because that is most of what we hire. So usually when we're chatting with folks that are either in high school or early on in their university career, the number one recommendation I give them is to, be pursuing, and similar to what the other folks said, be pursuing online courses in new technologies, new languages for programming, anything you can sort of find and absorb as courses online. I would suggest doing that just because especially for software development, there are lots of people that have created massive success stories with apps and businesses that actually have no education in programming. They're completely self-taught. And it's just from doing things online. So, those courses, doing your own side projects, tinkering with, different technologies, like I said, languages, I think that's huge in that world. And when we see that, through our interview process, we can always tell that somebody is just so passionate about programming and about technology, and that really shines through because they took the time to pursue their, additional learning or their courses and projects outside of just school, because lots of folks, of course, are going to university or going to college and doing programs, which is great, and of course, very, very important. But it's good to see people pursuing things outside of academics, in terms of their own learning, and of course, that should continue on, just like everyone else here said, throughout the rest of your career. I would say pursuing any opportunities for work terms, internships, whatever it might be, that is huge as well. We like to see that folks have, worked in some sort of professional environment. Definitely not a requirement, but a nice to see, just because having that experience definitely can give you an advantage for sure. And like I said, just side projects, hackathons, anything that you can do in your own time that is technical and in programming, is certainly very, very important. And, it's great to do all those things. And usually that's what I encourage students to do when I'm out chatting with them, but making sure to put all those things on your resume. So, we obviously, we're unless we bring you in for an interview, we don't know otherwise what other things you are pursuing or, what you are doing in your spare time with your, with your profession. So I would say having a section section on your resume that is for projects or, you know, side courses, whatever it might be, just so that you can highlight those things, and even having links on your resume to, you know, if you created an app or if you know, wrote a piece of code for a particular problem you were trying to solve. It doesn't have to be, you know, the next Angry Birds or something. It could be, you know, something really, really basic, but it just shows that you have an interest, you have a passion in pursuing software development. There's lots of other careers, obviously, at Verafin. I think those things from a general perspective still apply, you know, just like everyone said, learning is so important. Pursuing professional work opportunities is so important. I'm not a programmer. I went to business school. So, you know, I went to do all those things when I was in university. I did internships and took volunteer opportunities to get human resources experience so that this could be my career. So, I mean, I think from a general perspective, doing as much as you can while you were in school and in university to sort of, you know, develop that resume and develop those skills that the workforce is looking for is huge. In a previous life, Jennifer was a school guidance counselor, so I'm sure she's got some tips as well.
Well, honestly, my biggest one is talk to somebody. If you're in high school, talk to your school counselor. That's what they're there for. They'll help direct you. If you're in college or university, there's academic advisors. There's also school counselors. There's so many different people. There's teachers and professors who work in the areas who might be teaching on the side. So I would definitely, it goes back to, again, that there's no silly or stupid question, right? Like, just put it out there, try to get in contact with somebody, try to find out as much as you can about it in terms of what the job is, if you're going to like it, like Nicholle said, if you can see it as a career for yourself. And just trying to find out, like, you know, what are people looking for? I mean, attending something like this is fantastic, but there's always people that you can reach out to and ask. And that's actually what my position here is really about, is kind of bridging the gap between high school and college and university students to the workforce. So I'm definitely contact within Verafin itself if you're interested in software development, but in general, there's always somebody at a college, at a university that you can talk to in whatever area you're interested in.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So yeah, exploring your options will definitely help you figure out what you'd like to do. And that's such an important thing when you're, you know, young and you're in high school or college. And it is, you need to talk to somebody. That's the thing. And, you know, online resources are a really great way of figuring out what you want to do. YouTube is awesome. I know a lot of the younger generation use YouTube all the time. Skillshare is awesome. I know I used that when I was learning graphic design and loved it. Yeah, and I mean, and that's what we're all about. You know, as a representative of Skills Canada, we love to see people trying to figure out what it is they want to do. And if anybody needs any help figuring that out, that's what we're here for. And that's why we're doing this event, is to figure out what it is that employers are looking for, what they need, and how we can help people prepare for this. So we're just going to move on to the Q&A. We have one question because we're sort of running out of time. So this is open to everyone. We can do it in order if you guys like, or anybody can answer. So this question is, how is your organization planning for the future in this new normal that we all face living in COVID-19?
I guess I'll chime in there. I think we might have went through some of these earlier, but for us, the biggest thing right now is getting accustomed and used to the remote working atmosphere. I mean, we're all still working from the office because we pretty much have to. We manufacture things, but we do complete on-site. So trying to adapt to complete as much of that on-site work as effectively as we can is the biggest challenge. And that's where we're heading. all our meetings are being done in Microsoft Teams and Zoom, as I mentioned before. And I think we will continue with that. Even if things get back to normal, we will do more of that because it's effective, it's easy, you don't have to go out to the office. So you save time, and it's as effective pretty much as having an in-person meeting, unless you got to demonstrate something. And we have done that. We've built some panels in the shop. Then usually we get a certifier come from Moncton to certify the panels, and we've done it by setting up a video camera and doing the testing via video camera. So it worked out, and that saves travel costs and hotels and all that stuff. So we may continue with that. That's the biggest thing for us right now, is trying to adapt and get used to that remote workload.
Yeah, it's been hard to plan because none of us really know what's going to happen in the future. So it's definitely a challenge to plan for the future when it's so uncertain. I would just like to add, for anybody watching on Facebook, if you'd like to comment your questions, we will pass them along to the panelists at a later date. Would anyone else like to answer the question?
It's Nicholle. I can certainly chime in. I echo everything John said. And planning for the future is certainly, it is something that we've been doing, I guess, over the last number of months since we've been struck with this. And, again, just to really reiterate, adapting as much as possible to our new work environments. Our advisors are working from home for the most part, and I think will continue for quite some time because they can, do from home what they can do if a client was here sitting in the office with them. I guess one of the challenging pieces would be, maintaining that social distancing piece of it. And I think as co-workers, we all get really comfortable in our work environment and working next to each other that sometimes you forget, oh, you know what, I'm not keeping that 6 feet distance, so you're constantly reminding yourself. And that's where the masks come into play. So this is certainly new for us. It's new for everybody. But I think, we will still be planning for the future for quite some time to come.
Perfect. Thank you, Nicholle. Yeah, I definitely agree. We're in the office now a little bit more. Our tentative date is September 14th for coming back. And you often forget because you get comfortable, and masks are uncomfortable, but it's what we all need to do. So thank you for your expertise on that. So a huge thank you again to our panelists for joining us today, and for all those who are tuning in on Facebook Live. We hope to continue this important dialogue with future events, so please stay tuned with Skills Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador, and check out our website at www.skillscanadanl.ca. Thank you to Verafin, iEAS, and RBC for joining us today for our Employer Roundtable Bridging the Skills Gap event. This event would also not be possible without the funding support from the provincial government, so I just wanted to give them a shout out and express our gratitude. As mentioned, we will have more events in the future. If anyone enjoyed what they saw here today, another Employer Roundtable is coming, but it'll be even bigger, which means more information and new ideas floating around. So stay tuned for that. And thanks again, everyone, and enjoy your weekend.